Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts, George and Harrison.
Hi, I'm George, the art collector.
And I'm Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
And again, I am Jeffrey, and apparently my title is Lord Chamberlain. We'll be starting off with The Blade itself, the first book in the original trilogy. We'll be covering, I believe, the end/the survivor, since the end is a prologue and is a short one, questions, no choice at all, and playing with knives on this episode. So, let's get started. First, I guess we should talk about the series in general and, what it means to each of us. For me, this series is real important because it illustrates, I can relate to it, to all the characters, and I feel the same, that you guys feel the same as well.
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these books, I don't know about you guys, but they've definitely got me through some tough times, especially lately with the Age of Madness and, COVID and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for me, they just teach a lot of perspective that you don't think about in the world from everybody. Everybody's a person, and you just forget about that sometimes, and these are good reminders.
I like the gritty realism that this book portrays, and it doesn't really depend so heavily on magic, unlike some other fantasy series, I would imagine. And I think it just helps to create a kind of relationship between the books and the reader, and I think that's a big part of it as well. It's more easily accessible than other titles.
Yeah, I mean, if you pick it up, you don't have to worry about a whole bunch of information.
Exactly. I think this is probably one of the most easy to read pieces of fiction that I've ever read. Yes, so it's not simple, but it's very easy to understand as you're reading it. You never have to go back and go, hang on, who's done what there, and there's no confusion like that. It's fantastic.
Harrison, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. It's not something to where, some book series you're going to be lost for the first half of the book because there's a magic system and then there's all this extreme history detail exposition and each character has their own stuff going on, and that's all there in the first law. It's not directly important to each character's journey. So it's interesting. It's one of the aspects that I love about it, but it's not necessary.
No, I agree for sure. Oh, we should probably explain our titles real quick. This is done in lieu of using our last names. So we decided to go with Lord Chamberlain. For me, I believe the guy's reasoning was that I basically
we speak for the king.
Yeah, I speak for the king. I speak for the
You're
king.
You're head of administration and all that.
Basically, I'm just in charge of all the paperwork.
And plus, you got a little crown next to your name as a server owner,
Oh yeah, that's true. There you go. And then George, he's the arch lector because
I'm a propagandist. I run all of the social media that you guys would be seeing on Reddit and Twitter and everything else, except for the TikTok, because Harrison handles that.
Right. We were considering calling him the head of the disinformation board, but we figured that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we don't have the torture chambers up and running yet, but it is in the works. So
they are under construction as we speak.
And Harrison is our Adeptus Historical because he is our lore master. He's going to be spending the next couple of years just diving straight into the books, aren't you?
I'm going to know everything. Short of Joe knowing.
Harrison has figured out the size of the Agrion, just so you guys have any idea what we're talking about when it comes to Harrison and his commitment to learning all the lore.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. Well, I guess let's go ahead and let's talk about the first chapter read through, which is the end and the survivors. What did you guys think of this combined chapter?
I just think straight away, first paragraph, this isn't your granddad's fantasy. This guy's been this guy's been caught off guard. He hasn't even got his boots on, and he's just absolutely fucked straight away. And that just sets the tone straight away.
Yeah, we basically jump in on Logan just running for his life from what we later learned to be the Shanka. Which Harrison, how would you describe the Shanka?
The Shanka people like to make them like discount orcs, but they're really not. We were talking about this when we were getting ready for this podcast. They're a bit more interesting than that. They are not actually like they were, not to spoil too much here, but they were obviously not made in conventional means. They didn't evolve in some way. They were just made to kill and survive and adapt. And I find it super interesting that their body is made up of materials. Like they can use metal and leather and stone in their flesh as part of their person. And they stink. They're super stinky.
Yeah. Might be the 100-year-old leather that they're using as skin.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they're naked, They got their fucking genitalia just whipping around. That's probably, it might not help.
Yeah, they don't seem like the kind of people that are too concerned with wearing loincloths. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they ain't your grandpa's goblins,
No, definitely not. Not for that. And another thing that interested me about the Shanka in my notes is their complete disregard for their own survival. As in this chapter, we see that this one Shanka's life depends on holding on to Logan, while Logan's holding on to dear life to a little tree root off the side of a cliff. And instead of not messing with Logan's ability to pull himself up, therefore pulling the Shanka up, he decides to treat Logan's calf like, I don't know, a brisket. It's insane. He just
I mean, exactly. Insane. They are basically they have no ego, essentially. They are just animals. They are survival machines, and they fight whatever is in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they definitely are sentient, and they have languages and stuff, but they're like closer to dogs than humans in terms of like what they prioritize.
Exactly.
Right. It's always the immediate instead of the long term.
Basically, you wouldn't want to hire one for your investments.
No, there'd be a low ROI on that one. George, what else did you like about this read through?
Well, let me check my notes here.
I just like the fight scene. Honestly, this is the first time we see his fight scene, and it's awesome.
I mean, absolutely, the fight scene is amazing. Like you immediately see, like I said, it's not your granddad's fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, he nearly kills himself with his own axe.
Yeah,
and then he just splits somebody's head open, and that's it. You're done. Head's been split, and we are moving on. And there is a lot of head splitting.
Oh yeah,
in
for
this
sure.
Series.
And you gotta love the comedic aspect of this Shanka's head getting split because he just stands there, eyes blinking, and then collapses in a very comic way.
Yeah, it's going to be a common reoccurrence of like small grotesque comedy throughout the series whenever they're fighting things.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, for some reason, in literary circles, Joe Abercrombie is not really mentioned as a comedic writer, but his comedy is very underrated. It's permeating throughout the entire series.
And I think you can see it with just the first written or the first spoken word in the whole series, which is shit.
such profound words from our man Logan.
Exactly, and I don't think he actually speaks another word for the whole chapter. That's literally the only thing he says is shit.
Yeah, shit and gah.
Which you wouldn't, spend time talking about shit, whatever, or shouting at the Shanka.
Mm-hmm.
He's just absolutely desperate. He just needs to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's just scrambling for his life, and there isn't like this deep prose going on. It's literally shit, fuck, shut him. Like he's not. It's very realistic.
Yeah, you're not gonna be sitting there thinking, I wonder what I ate for breakfast this morning. Like my love of my life in the back of your head or something. No, that's not what you're thinking about.
No,
you're
just
like trying to
about
survive.
How the fuck do I get out of it?
Right, it's very immediate and visceral, I guess we would say.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we alluded to, the Shanka bites Logan's leg, and then Logan has no choice but to basically fling himself off the cliff and just hope for the best.
No choice at all.
No choice at all. And so he crashes into the river. The Shanka crashes into a rock face, and our man survives. Didn't know why this needed to be split, from the prologue to the next chapter, The Survivors. Could have just been one big chapter, but, don't question Mr.
I
Grimdark.
think it's sort of like a cold open in a TV show.
Okay.
You have like a
Okay.
short bit that shows you what's going to happen, and then you have the title card, or in this case, the Homer quote. The blade itself incites the deeds of violence, which is by itself fantastic.
Right.
That's a good point, George. I think that's exactly what they're doing there with that. What Joe chose to do with that.
Right. And Joe, I believe, got his start in writing screenplay, so that's probably where he got that idea, I'm assuming.
That does make sense.
I didn't think about that.
The whole first law and all of his work in general does sort of read like it's made for film.
Oh, it definitely is, and I'm surprised it hasn't even been discussed about or bandied about in the circles of Hollywood.
Oh, I know.
Well, they might have been talking about it, and maybe it just hasn't worked out yet.
That's true. That's true.
So Joe, if you're listening, you let us know, yeah.
Yeah, just let us know. I mean, we'll do like a little fan. We'll do a fan movie.
We won't tell anybody. We promise.
Yeah. Give us some insight. And well, one thing I did want to talk about is when Logan, washes up on the river. He decides to go back to camp to look for things he could use to survive. He doesn't really contemplate for more than 30 seconds about the idea of looking for his group. He just, where's my pot? And then he's out. He just leaves. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's just him. That's just his character. He's immediately gone to the worst case scenario. Gone. Oh, you've got to be realistic, and might as well just leave.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the case, and that he has spent time worrying and looking for other people, especially when it comes to the Shenka in his past. And so at that point, he's just like, "What's the point? What's the point?"
So then after that, he just grabs his blanket, his tattered coat. He finds his old boots, right?
I think it's his boots or maybe like no, I think it is his boots because
yeah, I think he said something to the case that he had his boots off, trying to trim his toenails or blisters. Maybe he had some, he had to deal with some corn.
Trimming blisters is exactly right.
Oh, there you go. Okay, and then like Harrison said, the pot that's Logan is so happy to see again.
I don't know about you guys, but I just immediately got attached to this pot.
You did now? What characteristics drew you to this pot?
There isn't anything in particular. It's just the way he says. I think it's the way Logan sort of uses it as like a symbol. He talks to it even. It's just you and me now. It's sort of like the relationship. So like in Castaway, with Wilson.
Oh, right, with Wilson.
It's just you've given that a personality.
The pot is definitely. I mean, we do have a character spot we'll go over later, but if we had to pick a character spot for the very first chapter alone, it would be the pot.
It would be the pot.
I think it's just the way he talks about him. Like George is saying, he talks to him, but it's also the way he thinks. He's like, "Oh, this pot has been with me for a long time," and Logan at this point, as far as we know, doesn't have anything left. He's completely alone again. He's lost everything again, and he's just kind of like, well, I guess just me and you now. What else is he going to talk to?
So that was it for the first chapter. It seems like, right? Is there anything else you get?
What would you rate it?
Oh, yes. We're going to rate each chapter read through. This, for me, I'd say 3 fingers out of 9 fingers.
Oh, that is very low. I reckon a good 5 fingers out of 9.
Good 5. Okay.
I think honestly, I'm with Jeff on this one. I'm gonna say 3 fingers out of 9. It's not a obviously the action is good and Logan's character introduction is great, but there's not really much going on. It's pretty short.
Right, it's not a lot of world building. It's more a man falls off a cliff and retrieves his cookware. That's how I got it.
It's just a fantastic microcosm of the way these books work.
Right.
That's the tone for what's to come.
Yeah, the characters fall off cliffs and are like, well, fuck, I guess I'm fucked.
Why are we even here? And they're just like, I don't know.
Why are we here? Just to suffer?
Oh, that's all the books are about, suffering. So if we're here to seek happiness, you've come to the wrong series.
Absolutely.
So then the next chapter is questions, where we meet Inquisitor Glocta. What did you guys glean from this read through?
Fuck stairs.
Oh yeah, it really just straight away he gets across like how much in pain or how much pain Glocker has to deal with that he can't even get down. How many stairs? Is it seven stairs.
Right. Is it 7? I thought it was 16. No,
Is
it is 16. I'm looking at it
Ah,
right now. 16 steps cut from smooth stone. This man
still.
knows his stairs. And you know
The-
what's. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I'm pretty sure Joe hates stairs all the way around. It's not to spoil anything, but stairs are brought up in multiple characters throughout the
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if as a kid Joe was thrown down a couple flights or something, but he seems to have an intense dislike for stairs.
I think that might just be a British thing.
Okay.
You don't like stairs either, George?
Yeah, we hate either French and stairs. So
You hate the French and stairs. What are there just ramps everywhere in Britain? What's going on?
yeah.
Everywhere is wheelchair friendly, right? So
Yeah, very accessible in Britain apparently. I guess you guys are
No,
just trying to make up for all the grand things you've done in
no,
You
I
know what
think
you
it's
don't have?
the world that we love
big
to
parking
complain.
lots.
Yeah, we have big parking lots at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
true.
And the one thing I do like about this chapter is, like George said, we immediately tune into the constant discomfort and pain that Glockta deals with, but you get a sense that he wasn't always this way without going into immediate detail right from the gate. I think that's really it piques the reader's curiosity. That's what I feel like it does. Although I could be wrong. Who am I to assume what a reader's thinking?
Very true.
I mean, I get whenever I read this chapter every time in the beginning, I always think about how just pissed he is. I mean, rightfully so. I mean, we'd all be pretty upset in this situation all the time, dealing
He
with
immediately
stairs.
starts like self-monologuing about he wants to torture the inventor of steps. Which,
Right.
for someone he's never met before, that's pretty mean-spirited, isn't it?
No, for sure.
Yeah. Although I will say that I mean I don't know about you guys, but I don't I don't go on torturing monologues in my head. But if I'm doing something, sometimes my mind will just drift off. And I thought the way it's written is just obviously it's very realistic on how our brains kind of do things sometimes. Sometimes not everybody, of course, but some of us will just start going off in tangents in our heads while we're doing something menial like going downstairs or driving a car, and it'll just go on and on.
Well, as someone who does have torturous monologues in their head, I can attest to the realism of Joe's writing in terms of how he portrays Glockta. So 2 thumbs up on that, George. I meant George. Joe. God damn it! I have to edit that out. We didn't even touch on the fact that this episode is named from is named by the first sentence of this chapter.
Why do we do this?
Why does Glockta do this? Does it? Do you wonder why?
I don't think
I
anyone
mean-
actually answers that question.
It's kind of left ambiguous to the series, but it's probably something we'll have to explore later on if we don't want to get into spoilers.
That's true. We don't want to get into spoilers right now. So here, Glockta, has a battle with some stairs, comes out of it relatively unscathed. The man still alive, as Logan would say. And then we meet, I believe, Practical Frost, and we meet Salem Ruse. Is that
Yep.
correct? Yep. At
Yes.
that time. And
And we're introduced to a lot, or the first of many very gory torture scenes. Well, not so gory this one, but
Yeah, I think Frost just punches them a whole bunch.
right. Well, that's still
I
not
mean,
nice. At
No,
the
that's
very
okay. It's totally okay.
least. Harrison, we need to have a conversation off air.
and I think it's very it's interesting that one sec, sorry. So basically, I think this is good because it introduces one of the main themes for the whole series is that the Union is just not a good place to live.
Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
can be literally taken off the streets and kidnapped
Mm-hmm.
and just shoved in a chair and tortured at the will
Mhm.
of the state.
Oh yeah.
And that is obviously a recurring theme throughout.
Yeah,
Book.
ironically, it seems like there's many places in the circle of the world that aren't that great, and
Mhm.
for the most part, sadly, the Union is a terrible place to live, but it's also kind of all. If you're a normal person, it's also probably one of the best places to live because you're not gonna be a slave. You're not gonna have to worry about your fucking hut being burnt down because some random bandits want to, you know, want to take whatever you own. You're not gonna have to worry about a civil war. You're not gonna. Well, you maybe
You might have to worry about civil war.
but on the whole, you can just kind of live your life normally. You could get captured by the Inquisition, but compare that to Gurkle or the North or the Old Empire. It's still, unfortunately, probably better.
Right. Well, honestly, I think I'd prefer the North as compared to Gurkle or maybe even the Union, unless it's maybe Starkland. How would you say it?
Starkland has a bunch of
Starkland.
rebellions constantly.
Well, it just adds some spice to somebody's life. I think that's pretty cool.
Rebellions, good for the economy.
Make sure you don't get any tattoos, you'll be fine.
You weed out the chaff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Speaking of weeding out the chaff, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we do get to introduce Salt in this beginning part, do we not?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, we do. Wait, before we get into that, let's just clarify something, just in case there are any first-time readers. The first chapter, Logan's in the north, in an unnamed place. I think farther north than what's known as the High Places. And here we're currently in the Union, which is in the center of the Circle of the World, in the capital city of Adua. Is that how you say it? Adua?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Adua.
And
Logan is in the High Places, but like just south of the High Places.
Oh, he's just south. Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake. Thank you, Mr. Adeptus Historical. Appreciate that.
Because he talks about how he's going to go up into the High Places.
Okay. Right.
So,
okay.
I needed to Harrison, sure.
I needed to visualize that for a second. I was like, wait a minute. Okay. So, the one thing I did want to point out about the second chapter, questions, is when Glokta is immediately interrogating Salem Ruse. When Salem sees Glokta for the first time, there's a glimmer of hope because they served together in the army years past. And then Glokta shuts that hope down real quick. And after he has Practical Frost beat him, he assumes that Ruse will just crack and confess immediately after that one punch. And then instead, Ruse, he says his eyes grew hard, I believe. Let me see what he said. He said, his piggy eyes were hard now. And he says, blows make most men soften up, but some men harden. I never would have taken this one for a tough man, but life is full of surprises. And it kind of makes me curious as to Glokta's perception of either Ruse or just the people that he used to know in the past. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, because obviously he's been through so much, and in his mind, he must have so much resentment towards everyone that knew him. And obviously he calls him here reminds me of a beached whale, and all of the every time he refers to him, the narrator refers to him, it's the fat man. It's just there's obviously a lot of resentment and hatred towards him, even though as Ruse said, they're supposed to be friends, or they were friends.
Mm-hmm. And maybe Glokta has this idea in terms of himself that because he survived, well, we shouldn't really touch on it yet because I don't think he mentions it, but he survived whatever ordeal he was in as compared to anybody else that no one has ever survived, that he must be head and shoulders above everybody else in the toughness realm. Mm-hmm. And maybe he just immediately assumes that someone like Ruse, who gained some weight, is working for the Mercers, is probably very foppish, dainty. That probably lends some credence to Glokta's perception of him.
Glokta also is kind of has this resentment towards everybody, at this point. Every single person, even if it's kind of a obviously many of the characters in the series have toxic traits, but this is one of those. This is one of those things that where sometimes people do it in real life too, where we are just in a bad mood and we just assume everybody's out to get us. Everybody hates us. Nobody's gonna understand us. And Glockter just has that to the 100th degree. He thinks that everybody just is ridiculous and that he knows what's going on and blah blah blah. So it's just cranked up a little bit more for the reasons that you said.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense. I like that. What do you guys? Any other thoughts or ideas about this? Like, do you want to talk about when? Oh, I think before we talk about Salt, we should talk about when he goes to see Kaline because Severard came and let him know that he found the box.
Of course. And I think as well, Glockter, Severard, and Frost make a fantastic trio, a comedy trio.
Oh my God, that trio is the best. One of the best.
I mean,
especially when others refer to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think every single time that Frost is described in these books, he's related to Stone in some way.
I did not think about that. That's a good point, George.
Mm-hmm.
And that absolutely makes up for the fact that he has maybe 6 lines of dialogue in that trilogy.
Maybe.
He's usually just the hulking albino sitting in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah, but each of his lines is comedy gold. The man is a heavy hitter in the humor department. That's all I gotta say. For what is it, George? I think you corrected me one time we talked. He is actually half-tongued. He only has half a tongue.
I think it is something like that. I think it's some kind of genetic, sort of like maybe like a cleft palate or something like that, where you have like a malformed mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a cleft palate.
Pure speculation.
Oh, let's speculate away. That's what this podcast is all about.
Now, I always wondered if his tongue was cut out or half cut out because of something that he's done in the past.
I think that's possible.
Yeah, that's true. We know nothing about Frost. I mean,
and this isn't a spoiler, but we don't get to know anything about Frost other than one thing, and even then, it's not even about him really.
I don't even know what you're referencing. I'm gonna have to talk to you about that after this episode. But I know for a fact that like we later on in the if you read Sharp Ends, the collection of short stories, we do learn about Severard, right? But obviously we don't want to spoil anything there. But we know nothing about Frost, and I think that makes him all the more sympathetic of a character.
Sympathetic.
Just because I feel for people that I know nothing about.
Sure.
That's what I think.
The guy with, I quote, pink eyes is dead as a corpse.
Yeah, how can you not relate to that?
Oh, absolutely.
He is. He's just like you always, like you said, he relates to Stone so many times. It's like his character is like Glockta's muscle, and like in the literal sense, yes, but like he's like his right hand. He can't. Glockter's like the opposite of Frost in so many ways.
True. Almost like a foil, you might say.
Oh.
Well, you know what I think too. But you know what I think in a way. I think Frost and Severard, I think he even references this in either Before They Are Hanged or it was one of the 3 books. But he calls them his hands. His boys are his hands, and you can imagine one hand is the strong, not clumsy, but it's just all strength. Just swing with all your might. That's what would fit Frost the best. Whereas Severard, the dude's all about precision. As you'll learn later in these books, let's just say he doesn't miss. You know what I mean? And he's sneaky, and what else? He's very charming in a way.
Yeah, he's the one that sorts out the all the other things.
I feel like
the other things that don't involve punching.
Right. They are both extensions of Glockta in Glockta's current state. That's what I feel.
That makes sense.
So then Severard lets him know that Superior Kaline
Kaline
in the audiobooks anyway.
I am just catching up on the audiobook, so you will have to forgive me on the pronunciation, everybody.
Of course.
To our 5 listeners.
A quick tangent. I think
Hi, Mom.
Damn it.
Someone had to say it, all right? I did it for all of us.
Listen, like I told you guys before, I'm enlisting my parents to listen, and they're deaf. So what are you gonna do? George, you were saying, I apologize.
That's no problem. I've completely forgotten now, but you know.
You had a tangent locked and loaded. You can't forget a tangent.
Yeah. Stephen Pacey's voice for Glockter is just absolutely fantastic with that lisp. And it's not too much, it's not overstated, but you know, it proper gets you into the character, which I absolutely love.
I have to agree.
His internal dialogue as well. No, you know, if it has the lisp, then he's speaking, and if he doesn't, then it's his internal dialogue. That's just a great way to immerse you into it.
No, and I agree. I do agree that isn't over the top. I agree that because you guys had talked about, you told me that Pacey does a lisp for Glockta, and I was kind of taken aback because it doesn't transfer onto the page, unlike when Frost talks. You know, like you could tell like he's mumbled or there's like a lisp or something there. Whereas Glockta, that doesn't come across. But how Pacey does it, very well done considering the lack of. Does he even mention it? Not yet.
Front teeth.
Yeah, the lack of front teeth. Yeah, he does mention it at this point. I do. He does. All right. So, yeah, I agree with you there, George. Pacey, in my few chapters listening to this audiobook, is a bona fide master. The guy is great. I am just shocked at how good an audiobook narrator can be. So, hats off to Stephen Pacey.
I will say for all of us, this is Jeff's first time listening to the audiobook, but he's read the series, I think, a couple times now. We all have at this point.
Yeah,
but none of the new readers, basically.
Right, none of the new readers. I've reread the series about 7-8 times over the years. It's
one of those you just can go back to it so many times.
Oh yeah, no, exactly.
It's something new every time.
It's
like the Bible. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, why not? Let's compare it to that. I'd say a lot more consistent in some of its thematic elements, but yeah, let's compare it to that. Okay, so Sephiroth tells Glockta, hey, you got to see Superior K-Line. He's pissed. And then Glockta tells him to come in at a predetermined time with the box. I like how here you see that Glockta is always thinking 2 to 3 steps ahead, at least, of the people that he's either working against or in proximity to.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that is definitely some kind of PTSD response. You know, he's always defended himself. He's never going to end up in another situation like he did before.
Oh, right. I didn't think.
So here's something interesting. What you said, George. I think that's definitely true. He definitely never wants to be in the same position he was before. But at the same time, he knows most of the time there's nothing he can do about it most of the time. At a certain point, he knows that there's no point of return, which is why, yes, his instincts are aware of that, but his actual thought process by the end of it is, well, if it happens, it happens. At least I die.
Yeah, and to piggyback off some more of what George said, later on in the books, you will find out what happened to Glockta, how he came to be this way, and without spoiling, we can say that he was headstrong, incredibly confident, and basically put himself in a situation that anybody with any shred of a sense of self-preservation would not have placed themselves in. And somehow he's surprised that it turned out the way it did for him. He's like that Pikachu meme. You know what I'm talking about? Where do you guys know what I'm talking about or no?
No, I'm sorry.
No, sons of bitches. All right.
I tell you what he's like though. Here's a fever dream. All right, here's a fever dream fan theory. I just thought of it just now. Is Glockta a Shenka? Because he has no sense of self-preservation.
I think he was a Shenka in a prior life, and then he was reincarnated into a cripple. That's ours. That's what it is.
That's getting written down somewhere. Bloody hell.
Yeah. So reincarnation's a thing apparently in the first law. Look at that.
It's not. It's not.
So it's not. No, when people die, they die. There will be no resurrections, as Thanos would say, if you guys are into Marvel at all. Yeah. So then Glocta finally goes to the superior's office.
Keep getting sidetracked.
Yeah, we keep getting sidetracked. No, but it's okay. But we get sidetracked as long as it takes for Glocta to walk up some stairs. Let's just look at it that way. So then, so then he meets Superior K-Line, and he is not happy about Glocta's actions, which leads me to one of my notes. I gotta. What was the catalyst for Glocta's initial investigation into the Mercer Guild? That's never expounded upon, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
That's very true.
Sorry,
Harrison.
George was about to say something, so I was gonna let him speak. What were you
No,
gonna say, George?
you go first.
I do not believe that they mention it, besides the fact that he was found for corruption. So Glocta was just doing his job, but the rule was you're not allowed to bring anybody associated with the Mercers in because they're too powerful and I can get in trouble and blah blah blah. So, but Glocta's like, fuck it, this guy's corrupt. Oh, this guy. Oh, I know this guy. He's a little whale. Fuck this guy. So he just brought him in anyways. But I do not believe. I don't think it's for a specific reason. It's just because he was just doing his job and he knew he was corrupt.
I think he just wanted to shake the boat a little bit. You know what I mean? He wanted to rattle the cage and get things moving. Because even K-Line says to him in this chapter, evasion of the king's taxes, they're all at it, What are you doing?
Right. And he says, but this was so open, Superior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what it just makes me think?
It was an insult to us.
It makes me think of something. What if Glocta kept tabs on all his former friends, right? Think about it, because you learn later on he does keep tabs on his former friends and who they hang out with. What if he kept tabs on Ruse and saw that he was doing a little, skimming money off the top there, and then decided, fuck this guy, and just decided to take him in for a questioning. Do you know what I mean? Again, that resentment
for Glocta as well, just being an absolute, he's spiteful.
That's what I'm thinking. He's so spiteful that it bleeds into his profession.
It kind of does, especially in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I'd never thought about it that way.
Yeah, because it's just, that's one of the things that Abercrombie doesn't give us. He gives us a little breadcrumb, but he never gives us the whole slice. And I'm just like, well, why? Why did he start doing this? But I mean, what are you gonna do? And then K-Line freaks out when Glocta's like, yeah, I left him with Frost. So what? K-Line's like, well, I guess he's fucked now. We can't send Ruse back.
Yeah, he knows what kind of work the hulking albino does.
So then K-Line's flipping out. He's about to report him straight to the Archlector. And then who comes in?
Oh, man, Severard. With the big box of money, which is, as you know, the cure-all for all moral ailments.
Right. Yeah. If you have
Although,
go ahead.
It's obviously not to spoil too much in the future there as well, but K-Line is actually a fairly, for First Law standards, honorable man, and so it's interesting because as we see, I believe even in this chapter, correct me if I'm wrong, but he does let his own superior, Archlector Sult, know what happened. He maybe doesn't tell him he took a bribe, but he does let him know because he does like money, of course, but he's also follows the rules pretty well.
No, that's true. Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say K-Line isn't a complete corrupt official in the government. That's what I would say.
But he does take a big box of money.
He does take it. He does take it. And then he just says, "All right, Glocta. I mean, do what you got to do. I'm definitely gonna need Ruse's confession at this point if I'm gonna go to the Mercers." That's what he says. And then the first sentence of the next paragraph is basically, K-Line was right. There's no way this motherfucker could have shown back up to the Mercers the way he's looking. Right? And then
I mean, I think people don't really realize how much pain you'd be in after half an hour of being beaten.
Yeah, especially by somebody like Frost. Frost is, probably he's way over 6 feet tall. He's buff as hell. He's gonna
Yeah.
each punch is gonna probably you could break your nose each time he punches you. It's
And then that's why it's so good when he comes out with a line, compared to him, or compared to me, he's a kitten. And you'll be begging for half an hour with a practical.
Mm-hmm. To say that with such confidence, I mean,
he is
that's
so
got to
cold.
terrify you if you're looking at Glockta. I mean, just
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at Glockta alone's got to terrify you, but
And then all he has to do is open the box with his instruments.
mm-hmm.
And
Oh yeah, yes.
yes.
That the multi-level, the layered box of instruments, beautifully crafted in their gruesome glory, quote
It's like
unquote.
a fishing box,
yeah,
Yeah.
a fishing tackle box. Yep, you're right.
tackle box, yeah.
Mhm.
It really reminds me, for some reason, when I first read this book, I was thinking of the it's really weird, but that bit in Toy Story 2.
Oh my
when
god, that's what I was thinking of too just now. I was thinking of that. I was trying to think of the movie, and it
the
was
guy
like a
that comes to
Pixar.
clean Woody and fix him, he's got that box with all the different bits and like different drawers and stuff.
I'm
And
drawing a
that's
blank.
just what I see.
See if I can pull it up.
You're gonna have to send it to me. I'm familiar with the kind of box that you're talking about. I actually have a cigar box that's like that, but in terms of the Toy Story box, for some reason I'm drawing a blank. I cannot remember for the life.
That might be a bit too big of a tangent. Sorry about that.
Might be too big.
Too big of a tangent.
Oh yeah, it's okay. Well, editing exists for a reason. It's fine.
Mhm.
So then Glockta comes back, shows him the instruments, and starts threatening that tooth of Roos that Roos keeps licking.
Mhm.
And then another interruption. And Glockta's just getting pissed at this point.
Yeah. And he's thinking, oh god, I'm gonna have to walk up another 50 flights of stairs.
Yeah, right. And then Practical Frost whispers in his ear, "Who wants to do the voice? Because I can't do it."
It's the arts vector.
And there is Practical Frost's first words uttered in the first law. And it's a doozy.
Yeah.
So the Arch Lector, this gentleman, this position in the government that George holds the same title of. George, would you be so kind as to illustrate what the Arch Lector is?
So the word arch lector comes from, I think it's Latin, and it means reader, I believe. So
Really?
you are essentially, in control of all of the information. So as head of His Majesty's Inquisition, the arch lector, basically propaganda, torturing people every now and again whenever you want to, and just controlling things politically.
I did not know that's where the origin of the term Arch Lector, like in Latin. Okay, Joe, doing his research. In layman's terms, I guess we could say that the Arch Lector is like the head of the CIA or the head of MI6 for you Brits, right? Is that correct?
Mhm.
MI5?
Yeah, MI5 would be or MI6.
MI5. Okay, good. I was afraid we got cut off by those agents over there because I mentioned them on air. Sorry about that. Okay. So then he assumed that the Archlector had sent for him, but instead Frost is like, no, he's here right now in the hallway. And that throws Glockta off big time, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you can kind of think of it as you're a McDonald's employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or is a better analogy. You're working in a warehouse for Amazon, and and then so your partner comes up to you, is like, "Hey, Jeff Bezos would like to see you," and you're like, "What the fuck, Jeff Bezos?
Right.
Why is he here?"
Right. So that alone's got to give you some anxiety, and then coupled with the fact that, well, if this person who's Jeff Bezos in this situation is likely to just murder you, have you murdered, thrown off the docks, correct?
And I like the fact that we see our first little glimpse of Glockta just being completely fearless now. He's ready to go,
I was like, "Well, I guess this is it."
Body
my
foul
time.
floating by the docks and all that.
I like how Glockta's moment to his time to shine is when he thinks he's about to die.
Yeah, and his last the last thought in that sequence is, well, at least I won't have to walk up any more stairs.
Again, actually, this chapter is just a hate letter to Stairs in general.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not actually about the plot at all. It has nothing to do with the character. It's just for Stairs.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Actually, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, we should point out that Glock does appreciate whoever invented chairs.
That is true. There's a nice parallel there with the person he wants to torture the most and the person who he's happy to shake their hand, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like
And
how
he
that's
doesn't,
two ends of an extreme.
right?
Torture and a handshake.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's also kind of the full range of his interaction with other people at this point, and
True.
for a long time, he doesn't really know how to interact with anybody else besides mutual respect, which even then that's very dealt out little, and then torture.
And we meet one of my favorite characters here, which is Archlector Salt.
Mm-hmm. One of your favorite characters, huh?
Absolutely.
Surprise, surprise. Archlector George.
Yeah, you better watch yourself.
Yeah, we got to watch what we say. We don't want to incur his displeasure.
I'm just glad we don't have a high justice in this group of
son
ours.
of a bitch. Go ahead, George. Explain to us why Archlector Salt is one of your favorite characters.
It's just such a good stereotype of, everybody's had a boss like this. It gives you an impossible task and then just absolutely berates you for not being able to do it and stuff like that. And I just think
he is Jeff Bezos.
This must
Yeah,
be,
he is.
I think this must be one of Joe Abercrombie's bosses. At some point, it must be based on him.
It's a good point. It very well might have been, or we've all heard the stories of how bosses can be and stuff, and he just thought of the most extreme version of one of those people.
For sure. So it's here when Archlector takes him to like a room down the hallway, a room that looks exactly like Glocta's torture room. So there's a ubiquitousness to the whole House of Questions, the building where they interrogate prisoners. And here is where we get Archlector Soul is Joe's vehicle for exposition here, where he's able to explain to us, the reader, what it was that Glocta went through.
Absolutely. So he explains how he was captured by the Gurkish and kept for 2 years in the Emperor's prisons, which by itself is just not a good image. And then, of course, the description of how he's probably never going to get out of bed again. So straight away, we can just see, this man is a wreck, and all he has to say about it is, I love it when the Archlector asked him, "Did you talk?" And he was like, "Yeah."
He's like, duh.
I said everything that could ever came to mind. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, what the fuck did you think I did?
Yeah. And he doesn't try to, half beat around the bush or anything like that. He's just like, "Yeah, fuck you. Of course I did."
Yeah, he says he pissed himself and cried like a girl. Everyone does. There's no need for investigation on Salt's part. It should be obvious that you're gonna blab. You're just gonna blab in that situation.
Although credit to Salt is that it probably is something that he wanted to know, like how is this guy a liar? Is he gonna lie to me?
Right.
Yeah.
It confirms what. Well, not confirms, but it's part of Salt's appraisal of Glocta.
Yes, definitely.
And the thing is, he's more impressed with the fact that he survived. He doesn't give a shit really that he talked. I mean, because what is Glocta, who's in the army, a colonel in the army? What's he really gonna know and say that's so damaging to the Union? The fact that he survived is more impressive to Archlector Salt.
Yeah, he highlights that. Yeah, that's a good point. He says that not everybody does survive. Because I think he talks about how he's like, not much of a man came back or whatever. And he's like, well, not everybody survives.
And then he talks about what Glocta did after that. He like George said, he wouldn't make it out of bed. He was in England for a few years, pissed everybody off, but production was great over there in England when Glocta was over.
Again, Jeff Bezos to a district manager, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Bezos would be proud, I guess. And then Archlector wants to pursue the investigation into the Mercers further and tells him to arrest Sepp Dan Teufel. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah.
And Adeptus Historical, please tell us who is Septan Teufel for our readers.
He is the master of the mints. Now, they don't talk about it any more than that, but I believe a mint is where they make money. I think.
Yes.
Is that
Specifically
correct?
coin.
Yes. A mint.
I believe, but I second guessing myself.
Right.
But
a mint is where they mint money. Yes.
Yeah. I believe that was the case, but then I thought, wait, what if it isn't?
No, he's just constantly carrying around like a Tic Tac. You know, if the king needs a mint, he's there.
He just runs up there. Here you go, my lord. But he is the master of the mints, which already makes him in a more powerful position. And not to get into spoilers, but there's obviously more than just him as position. He's connected to the Mercers, and he's connected to some other people. So that's really why the Archlector wants to go after him. It's not he doesn't really care if he's the master of the mints. That's why he wants to send Glockter, though, is because since he is in a position of authority, then he wants to send somebody who's not afraid to die.
Mm-hmm. And then he just wants to obtain to confession, and then I guess he wants him to confess to the same thing that Ruse confessed to, or that Glockter's trying to get Ruse to confess to, which is evasion of king taxes. What else? Corruption. High treason, I believe.
Yep, I think that's the list.
Pretty much whatever he can get him on, he doesn't really care.
So then he tells... Go ahead, George, what did you say?
Sorry, no, I was going to skip ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say that, then he tells Glockter to get Teufel's confession by this time tomorrow, which is pretty much, you better have it or else, kind of, that was the tone that the Archlector was given to Glockter.
Well, it's kind of his test to see if he's really going to be able to be useful to him.
And of course, at the end of that segment as well, we have, why me? Is it because I am good, or because, if I fail and I get captured, or, if I get killed, then nobody's going to give a shit.
Right, because he won't be missed, exactly. And to think of it, he was once a highly praised member of the Union. They call him the greatest swordsman of all time in the Union, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely there.
That's insane.
Yeah, we'll cover that point.
We'll cover that for sure. And then finally, he returns to Ruse, and you just know he's like, all right, too much time has passed. You just are going to confess to me. Don't make me do these terrible, terrible things to you. Just confess, man. Just confess. Yeah. That's literally he's like, I'm too tired for this.
What gets it in the end. Like, just come on.
Yeah. He's like, come on. You don't even want me to do this. Why do I don't want to do this. Just too much time has passed. I got to deal with these stairs. Can we just get this fucking thing signed and let's get it moving?
Yeah, it's a very practical way to go about your work, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. Glock is nothing but efficient,
He's quite efficient, yeah.
And then he tells him to write down Septan Teufel's name on his list of co-conspirators, I guess we could say. Which surprises Ruse, but he doesn't really hesitate too much.
Yeah, at this point, he knows it's going to be worthless to hesitate, so he just signs it.
I mean, he's already lost everything, hasn't he? And I think we can kind of segue into the next segment, which is our character spot, I believe.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. We could do character spot.
Since he's right here.
Yeah, he's right here.
He's right here, right in front of us. So.
He's right here. He's right in front of us. Character spots is the next segment, and today, our character spot is who?
We have our prisoner Salem Ruse in the interrogation chair.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I just feel nothing but sympathy for this guy.
Okay.
Obviously he's not the only one who's been, double dipping. He's made a bit of money for himself. He might be a bit rich, but apart from that, he hasn't really done anything, has he?
Yeah, no, that's true.
And K-Line even says everybody does it. It's like out of all the people, him, and it's. I think it kind of hit Ruse whenever Ruse is like, "It's me, Glockter, it's me," and then Glockter goes, "Am I supposed to know this man?" Even though he knows exactly who he is.
Yeah,
I think that really hurt his feelings because, he thought he was friends.
Absolutely, and he loses his wife. His wife actually betrays him.
Yeah, she gave him the books so quick.
Right.
Apparently,
away.
Yeah.
She was like, "Oh, yeah. Well, he did his paperwork here in this room. Here's everything I saw. By the way, he probably met with this motherfucker down in the docks. I didn't like how he looked. They talked about money. Get him too. Like his wife just sounds like someone that just gave up.
She's already with another man.
Probably, yeah. Ugh. Oof. That's tough. That's a tough one. I mean,
Yeah. But despite that, he still is not for his own pride only. Because what else? He's not really trying to protect anybody, you know. For his own pride, he actually gets a little harder whenever he gets punched. You know, he doesn't back down. He's not a for all you can say about Salem Ruse at this point. He is not a weak man
Very true.
internally.
And he only really signs at the end because, the pride isn't worth the pain.
Yeah.
right.
And he signs well because he's not an idiot either.
Right. Like no one's coming to save him.
Right.
Right. So it's like he's gonna suffer for what?
Exactly. He's already had to, had his hopes raised twice and dashed twice.
Yeah. That's
Which
enough
just
to
adds
put.
insult to injury.
Yeah, right. And that's enough to put most people out to pasture. Like you get your hopes dashed. Sometimes like I get my hopes dashed once a year and that's it. I'm done for that year. So I get it. I get it, Ruse. I empathize with you. Oof. What else about Ruse interested you?
I think we've covered pretty much everything at that point.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, he's only a little character at this point, but I think it just, being the only person so far that you could probably say isn't a good person, but isn't completely evil.
He's kind of a normal person.
He's a normal
middle of the
person.
ground.
Like, yeah, we all might tell ourselves that we're decent, truly decent, but if we had the opportunity, we might take a little extra for ourselves. I don't really see anything terrible that Salem Ruse did. Like terrible compared to everybody else in the series is what I'm
Exactly,
saying.
and I think it's just a product of how corrupt the Union already is.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. We learn later on that the Union is pretty far gone in terms of corruption.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so then, with our character spot over, we move on to the next chapter, which is No Choice at All. Harrison, do you want to take this chapter over?
Yeah, let me look at my notes.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time. It's not like we're on air or anything. By the way, Harrison, do you have a drink?
I do have a drink. I'm actually drinking that Four Roses.
You're drinking the Four Roses bourbon, just like me.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Is that what you're drinking right now too?
Yes, I'm a proud pappy right now. How about you, George?
I am just on the water tonight.
You are on the water because of the time difference, and you have to work tomorrow.
Of course, yeah.
Yes,
Currently,
that is my fault.
half 11.
We should. It's half. Oh my god, we should be recording earlier on a. Going forward, today was just a crazy day for me.
Yeah, you're good, man.
Yes, no
So
problem.
Logan's up in the high places, and he is buried in some snow. He gets out of there, looks around, and is like, "Man, I got this shitty ass bacon. I got this shitty ass blanket. I can't really survive up here, but hopefully the Shenka are off me because apparently the Shenka, at least as far as we know, they're pretty good at hunting because they're able to track people down pretty well. That's what he was worried about. And he kind of just sits on. I mean, most of this whole little section here is just him reminiscing about his past and what he should do. But
That's exactly what I've got down here as well. He's going over all the people that he's lost. He's talking about losing his family, going over the hill and seeing his village burned out and all that. And I think that's really good because it's setting up Logan as this sort of really relatable character who, as far as he's concerned, the world is all against him. And none of this is his fault.
none of it is. Yeah, he's
You know,
just
no
he's never had a
choices.
choice. I did write down here as well that kind of when he decides that he's gonna go down the mountains and head south, he doesn't go, I'm gonna go become a better person now that I have a choice. No, he after, like you said, Jeff, that we are meant to kind of empathize with him. Look at all he lost. He does go. He has enemies down there, and he'll deal with them. Like he's still not letting go of that yet.
But that's only after he considers suicide by Shankar.
Right. Because because I think it's mentioned that the Shanka seem to be more prevalent in the upmost north where Logan is right now. And then here he decides to go southward where there's a better chance of him living, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotta be realistic.
Yeah, he's.
You have to be.
Mm-hmm. So then he says goodbye to his friends, which at this point are just the mountains, the high places. And then here we learn that Logan has an ability. And this is part of one of my notes is how like Logan can speak to spirits. If he starts a fire and then if he inhales the fire, is that correct?
I think he contacts the spirits by spraying spirits over the fire.
Oh,
Literally.
you're right. He takes a bit. Yeah, he takes. Wow, that's literal. I didn't even realize that. Holy shit, I'm an idiot.
It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. You know, we always call, liquor, spirits, and things like that. And in at least for this area, in this part of the world with Logan, then those are translate literally. I wonder if in the first law, complete speculation here, is if, in some form or fashion, liquor kind of came from a spirit talking to somebody, and he called it spirits.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Okay. So he uses spirits. He opens a flask, takes a mouthful, and spews it all over the fire. And then we get 3 spirits that come up to him. And here's my first question or no question: is how do you even discover that ability? How are you just who sits around a campfire, spits liquor, and is like, oh shit, I can speak to ghosts?
I bet somebody made him laugh once.
He's like, oh shit!
Oh yeah, he must have shit his pants there. That's what I would have done.
Do you guys see those fucking like tree spirits over there? And everyone's just like, what the fuck?
And they're probably like, oh, it's just the bloody 9 acting crazy again. Oh, silly man.
Come down on the chair there, bro.
If I had to guess, we know, obviously not spoiling too much, but the North is still have certain amount of magic. Magic is leaking from the world, but for the most part, there is still magic in the North. And I think it's less so that there is specifically magic in the North, and more like if you're in the Union, who the hell's going to teach you how to use magic? They're not superstitious at all. Whereas in the North, if there is one weird thing, they'll be like, oh, it may be because you're a hillman and it's something with the moon god or whatever, or it may be because you're past the Krina and they have some kind of weird religion, or you're from the utmost north and they still practice some sort of magic up there. So if I had to guess, it was probably his father. His father probably knew about it, and his father might have had the same ability.
Oh, interesting. It might have been generational. Okay. And you're right. The Union seems to be pretty secular in terms of its belief system.
I mean, there's definitely no reference to. In fact, they think that the Southerners worshipping God is silly.
Yes.
Do they say that at this point, or
no?
But
they're not on another tangent.
Okay.
But I think I'll definitely right, Harrison, in that it's sort of a connection to nature, because obviously the spirits are all very nature,
nature based.
Nature based.
In terms of what they are, it's again pure speculation. But we do know that all magic comes from the other side, and this is a school of magic. Not spoiling too much or anything. So
not too much.
The spirits, in some form, whether they are human beings who have been kind of pushed through the other side and have come out as spirits, or it's the embodiment of the nature of the world, but it's been influenced there only because of the other side. They used to be, kind of one place. It could also just be good demons, and they were allowed to be left behind when the two sides separated, and so now they just roam until there's not enough magic for them to sustain themselves awake, at least.
Oh,
that's an interesting theory. I never thought that.
Benevolent demons. Who would have thought? Okay, I dig it.
So our spirits don't really have much to say, but much like Salt in the last chapter, these are our exposition vehicle.
Yeah,
and they do a very good job of setting up our what's at least framed as Logan's fill-in for the trilogy, which is Bethod, the King of the Northmen.
Right. So Logan is very familiar with Bethod from what we're gleaning from this episode, from this chapter, and then the spirits tell him that somebody, a little old somebody, is looking for Logan. seems to be a magus.
Magus.
Magus. Listen, I don't know how you Brits pronounce things just wrong, okay? And I have to adapt. So, a magus.
George is like, where do you think you got English from?
Yeah. Listen, you guys are the past. We're the future. Get with it.
Whoa.
Let's not get into that right now.
I say that, yet George could probably just squish me with his left hand, so I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So the magus of the old time is looking for Logan. Does he say his name? No, they don't say his name at all, right? No, they just say
no. They say bye. Did they say that? I'm pretty sure they say. I don't know.
No, I'm looking at it right now. They don't say his name. They just say that the Magi
Magus from the old time.
Yeah, magus of the old time. The Magi are wise and strong, but they're crafty and have their own purposes. That's pretty much all. So they tell him that he's looking for him in the south. And my other note here is Logan didn't even hesitate to decide. Yeah, I'm just gonna go look for this guy. Yeah, no big deal. This random stranger.
Is it's just better than being shot full of arrows, isn't it?
That is true. That is
well,
true.
What else is he gonna do? You know.
Yeah.
What he doesn't really have a choice. You know.
Right. It could be make a possible new friend in the south, or have more of your leg bitten off. You know, that's not that difficult of a choice to make, I guess.
And not to speak about spirits for too long here, but it is interesting to note when he summons the spirits. Logan's ability, as according to what it actually is that he can summon spirits and command them. So whenever he says what's going on in the world, the spirits don't really have a choice but to tell him what they know is going on in the world. That's why they just give him that general information. They're not like, oh, Bias was looking for you or something. They're actually just saying, we hear that there is a magi looking for somebody who can speak to spirits. That's why they don't say they know it's him, because they're just doing whatever they're told.
That's true, because it does say here, the spirits are always weak on the details, but it's better than the usual talk about trees. Makes me think, this must be particularly important for them to tell. Because the only other thing they talk about is how the Shankar are coming back and in force, and how Bethord has become the king of the North.
Right, and then they say, we heard there is a man seeking for you in the moors of the south. That's what I'm reading. Okay, gotcha.
And this is all news in the north too. So whether these spirits travel or not is completely not known. But they only know what's going on around them.
And then Logan's sarcasm kicks in when he says, "I'll try to struggle on without you." When they say, "Well, farewell, perhaps for the last time." They're like, okay, Logan. So that's one way to talk to people who are actually willing to talk to you when you're lonely and isolated.
I mean, a lot of people, when they talk about the first laws, they talk about how magic, especially Logan's abilities here, are just forgotten. But literally, they say in the very beginning here that the spirits are like, yeah, we're not going to be able to talk to you anymore because we're going to go to sleep too. So it kind of explains why he doesn't really talk to spirits again after this. So anybody who is like, oh, he just gets rid of it because he forgets about it. I don't think he forgot about it. He just made it a point that this is the last time they're going to be there.
Right. He didn't feel the need to because he would without spoiling, going forward, he's not so isolated.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no need to speak to spirits at later.
Yeah, even if there were spirits, there's no need to because he prefers the company of people.
Right. Which I feel like I was going to say,
we
all would. But then introverts would be like, motherfucker, I think the spirits would be better.
Yeah.
That does ask the question, right? This would be a fun thing to do. In the future, you can cut this out if you want, but in the future, we should do like an episode. We kind of point out which of all the characters individually are they extrovert or introverts. You know?
Oh,
I feel like
shit! Yeah,
a fun exercise to do.
An amateur psychological analysis of with no credentials whatsoever, but we're very confident in what we say and believe.
I mean, Logan is
Myers-Briggs thing for everyone.
Right.
I think you're the most educated.
What happened?
I think George is the most educated. I think. I don't know.
It's like that personality test, the Myers-Briggs thing.
Oh
the
yeah, we give them all the.
information thing comes from. We could do like
yeah,
a
we should give him the
little,
Myers-Briggs test. We should do that. That should be an
That would be
episode.
cool. That would be cool. We should do
That'd
something
be
like that in the
hilarious.
future.
Yeah, we should.
But Logan definitely is an extrovert, I will say.
Okay, so next segment is question of the week, and George, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so normally we'd put a poll out or ask you guys on Reddit what the question you want to be is, but since we're releasing all 4 episodes at once, we're just gonna go back on the First Law subreddit, and we have user that whole guy on Reddit who asks, "Be honest, how much time have you spent wondering if Glockner has intact genitals?" Which is absolutely horrifying. And it is mentioned earlier in questions that he has to, piss sitting down like a woman. I think he mentions that to Salem Ruse.
Does he now? Did I miss that part? I know that's a thing for sure. I just didn't know. He just straight up told him, yeah. So
yes, I don't know. See, I wonder. He has to. That would right there would make you think alone is he probably doesn't have functioning parts just because he has to sitting down. I mean, every man or every person with a penis is gonna be able to piss standing up. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, I think he probably doesn't. If at the very least he doesn't have control over it. None of us do really, but you know what I mean.
Damn. Well, if I have to answer this question, I guess we'll take turns, right? And Harrison, you just gave your perspective. I will say, because there's the cynic in me, but then there's also the hopeful optimist. I will say, Glockta still has his genitals. He just doesn't have the supporting limbs to help him out when he has to go to the bathroom. So his leg is good for nothing, his left leg. So maybe sitting down to piss is more comfortable for him. You never know.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure there isn't any. It's never explicitly stated in any case.
Right. It doesn't say that Glockta has a gaping hole above his taint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think he would mention that if he did. He loves to talk about how his teeth were pulled out and etc.
Right.
etc.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he loves. He loves to revel in his own misery and what has occurred to him. You think that would be like one of the top 3 things?
Oh, he'd be shouting it
that he would just say.
He'd say it everywhere, like straight away. And I'm saying, I don't have a cock.
I don't even have a cock.
So, what was the Reddit user's name, George?
That whole guy.
That whole guy. That
Thanks,
whole guy,
bro.
Thank you for the question. I know we didn't adequately address it, but I hope you're at least satisfied with that answer.
What about George? What was your opinion?
Oh yeah, George. I thought George started off with that.
I was definitely of the opinion that he still does. He just he's in less control due to nerve damage or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. Like, he just doesn't have any control over it because I think eventually he talks about how he's not going to really be very capable in bed, but he doesn't talk about how he can't. He just talks about how he won't be very capable, which of course, because he can't even lay down correctly. The crippled bastard.
That's good. I think that'll be a very good first question of the week. We'll have to get some stuff up on the subreddit as soon as possible.
Yeah, we could actually post it today and ask questions. But
yes, we will be more active on the social media accounts. Hopefully, our audience can forgive us for how would we describe it, this haphazard approach, just because of just trying to put things together at a very quick pace.
And of course, we're all new. We're all first timers here, so
yeah, literally first time recording something together. Yeah. Harrison's a shy. He's like the girl that just won prom queen and is back at the hotel. It's like, that's my first time. It's like, but then we know the downside. You're lying.
They always are.
Always. Okay, well then, with that segue, we are into our last chapter read-through for this episode, which is Playing with Knives. And here we meet Giselle Dan Luthor. Who wants to introduce this fucking prick?
Go
That
for it,
is
George.
exactly it. That is exactly the thing you have to know about Giselle Dan Luthor. He's a bastard.
He's a prick.
He is
But
an absolute bastard. He hates. Well, he doesn't hate his friends, but he knows deep down, he knows that he's better than they are.
oh my god! And everyone knows a person like this.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And I think
For-
that's another thing that makes this so relatable.
For a lot of my friends, I am Giselle Dan Luthor, and I sympathize with you guys. I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I'm just better than you. Anyway, George, continue.
I think that's it. Like we meet all of Giselle's friends. We've got Jallenholm, Casper, West, and Brint, and all of these characters. They appear like they could just be like stereotypes at this point. But as we know, as you go deeper into it, these guys do stick around for a very long time. No spoilers. But the first thing he knows about all of them, he goes over some like simple characteristics, and Brint, who's a commoner, and I think is the maybe the youngest in the group.
Youngest
as well.
or lowest on the totem pole?
Exactly.
He is the
Lowest.
youngest. He is
Oh.
he is definitely the youngest.
And I
Wait.
think he says, he's got a lot of money with him for this card game, and it's probably all that he has to live on for a month.
Yeah.
But he's
Like,
still
who
gonna
does that?
take it
Who
from
does
them.
that?
To be clear, I am very sure that Brent is a nobleman. He's just very minor nobility.
Okay.
Right, and I think he's actually, when we get onto the third book, we find out from other characters, not yet to be named, that I think Brent and Giselle are of similar age. If you guys know what I'm referencing.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and weirdly enough, isn't it funny how Giselle's always just straight up shitting on Brent? Like Jalen Horn, he's like, yeah, he's an oaf, but he's good natured. Caspa, he's rich.
Casper doesn't really care about anything.
Yeah,
else.
Casper doesn't care. He's like, oh, I just want people to like me. Whatever. I'll just go like Harrison, like you say, a leaf on the water. Caspa is the ultimate leaf on the water, I would say.
And Wes is like, oh, I worked so hard for my position. Oh, you guys just don't understand me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that, or he's just gonna snap. But we'll talk about that later.
I do like how in this beginning part is Giselle is. It shows that he's not an idiot. Giselle is an asshole, but the fact that he's able to assess everybody's opinion during a poker game, determine their attitude, and all of it is accurate, is not something that everybody can do. And I do like how they highlight that he's not a complete idiot. He's just is extremely naive and self-aggrandizing and kind of narcissistic. So
Oh, for sure. Oh,
And
absolutely.
I love this card game, which just seems to be absolutely indecipherable. Like,
well, you imagine it's basically like based on poker.
well, we can imagine that, but then it's like, I have Earth, says Brent,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, well, I've got suns. And it's like, the fuck
What?
does that mean?
Yeah,
Right.
so-
I was like, oh, what?
But then,
So, as the Adeptus Historical, my complete guesswork at this is that the cards themselves have something to do with all of they have the Earth and they have the Sun. Obviously, the Sun wins because the Sun of the Union symbol is the Sun. So, of course, that wins. But Earth apparently is really good. Otherwise, Brent wouldn't have played it, which means more than likely the other aspects are probably like water or
Water, fire, air.
water and fire. Fire is probably the weakest if I had to guess. Or it could be something weird. He says earth, and then another one is sand, and sand could be really, really bad, or because it's not as good.
It seems like Joe Abercrombie's infusing some Avatar Last Airbender in here.
but
It's like,
I
all
think
right, we get it.
it really, really comes to when obviously Giselle wins the hand, and he literally says it straight away. It's all about the cards, nothing about. Sorry, it's nothing about the cards. It's all about the players.
Right.
Poker.
Right.
And I think that is just a really good summary for the or a metaphor for the whole series.
Right.
It's
Because
not about the plot. It's not about what happens. It's about the characters and the way that they
respond to it.
That is a great point.
Good job, George. I like that one. God damn.
That's really good, George.
Give it up for George. Clap, clap, clap.
Clap, 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 clap.
I hope you had cheering in the background there.
There you go. All I was gonna say, my little pitiful thing, was that Giselle here during this hand of cards, he acts as our exposition vehicle a little bit. Gives us a quick little background on Casper Jailahorn, and West acts as the the mysterious. I'm not a nobleman, and maybe you're social inferior, but I won a contest in the king's favor. Blah 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 blah.
Which makes me better than you.
Yeah, right. So we see that West at least has experience in the battlefield. Means he's what we could say, brave or courageous or battle tested. We can say, right? Caspa and Jalenhorn, we know nothing about that, but at least Giselle gives us his opinion on. Wait, no, Giselle gives us pretty good backstory on that. Correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we get the line that everybody says when they meet West, which is the first through the breach at Orioch.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
Everybody says that about West.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, you're right about that. So then we play the card game, and Giselle is just circling like a vulture on Brent. Poor Brent. This man, he's poor, or at least poor compared to them, right? And he throws all his money in for.
It's because Giselle, they're a similar age. Brent wants to be like Giselle. He wants to have that confidence and the posh attitude, and Giselle hates that. He hates the fact that he knows that Brent can never be as good as he is, and he's disgusted at him even trying to kind of be on the same level as him, because he's not.
Absolutely. But I also think he gets some redemption there, where I think it's West points out that Brent is, the youngest and he's new. And it's like, do you not remember being new? And he does say, he felt slightly ashamed.
Right. Slightly ashamed. He's just new here.
Just a little bit.
Right. He wants to fit in. Weren't you new here? Weren't you new once? And he's like, what are you, my father? And he's like, all right.
Yeah. And then obviously that makes him late as well.
Right. Because then Giselle realizes that he's late for something, but it has to do with fencing steals. And so then he's like, fuck. And then he goes, what does he say to Wes? He goes,
why didn't you tell me how late?
Right.
Well, I'm not your
Why
father.
don't you say something?
What am I?
What am I, your father? Mm-hmm. And then here, so I got to ask you guys, Varuz, Lord Marshal Varuz, we meet this amazing trainer. He is the Greg Jackson. He is the Customato. He is George Hit Me with the soccer coach. Great soccer coach.
Football. I have no fucking clue.
No fucking clue. Okay,
I'm pretty sure Liverpool's Jurgen Klopp, and they'll get me for that. But apart from that,
all right, that's not working. We'll go Bill Belichick for football, and that's as far as I'm going. But Marshal Varuz is the man to train someone into fencing for like the contest. And listening to the audiobook, it caught me off guard. His accent? What is that? Is that Italian?
I think because he's called Varuz, and I think there may have been a bit of a misunderstanding there and thought that he might be Styrian or something, because that is the generic Styrian accent.
That's what it is?
It's the Styrian accent.
So then that I had a question for that, and I guess it complicates my question. It's like, what are the various accents of the Union? And if Varuz is a Styrian, but Westport, which is for all intents and purposes is on the west coast of Styria, only came into the Union 10 years ago prior to this book, the publishing in the
about 10. Yes, it was right before the Gurkish War.
Okay, thank you, Adeptus. I appreciate that. So, for was that a oversight or what?
I mean, it's possible that somebody from Westport could have, made it to Lord Marshal.
But prior to Westport entering the Union, that's what I'm saying. Because Varuz is old.
You know what I mean? We know that he's in the Gurkish War as well.
Right, exactly. He's already fighting.
So I think, honestly, what it is, it simply comes down to the fact that Pacey Cannon came up with the voice for him, and that's the voice he gave him. Yeah, and that's
just leave
just
it at
what
that.
it happened. Yeah, I think that's what it comes up with, because if we think about it, yes, like George was saying when we were getting ready for this, if they ever make an adaptation, the Union would probably be best played by English actors with English accents and whatnot, because of the way it's phrased and written and all that. But that being said, he just probably wanted variety in the book.
Of course, for sure. And I should inform our audience, our listeners, our 6 listeners. If you don't know me already, I'm just a pedantic cunt. So it's just me. It's not my fellow co-host. It's just me. So just blame this all on me. Anyway, so moving on from Veruz's accent.
We're all cunts here, right? You better watch yourself, Jeffrey.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't want to hog the spotlight.
Yeah, don't hog the cunts.
No, don't hog all the cunts worldwide. So there is a one more thing I want to bring up, because it was mentioned right at the beginning of Playing with Knives, and it was said that Giselle's captaincy was bought 6 months ago by his father.
Another example of how corrupt the Union is.
Right. So, is there historical reference or precedent for that? Okay,
definitely, especially with nobility.
Right, because I consider myself to be a history buff, but the more I learn, the more I read, I realize, I'm just a grand scheme history buff, barely, if that. The minutia I'm not familiar with. So, yeah, if George or Harrison, you want to explain to me?
Well, basically anything before Industrial Revolution in history, we have like instances of this where powerful people would buy commissioned. This is why they're called commissioned officers, because you literally buy it, you commission it.
So it's right there in the name, and I didn't.
It is right there in the name, which is something that it still survives to this day.
Well, because if you had to work in the military, especially back then, not work, but if you had to serve in the military, then where would you want to be? Would you want to be on the front lines with the quote unquote non-commissioned levies and whatnot? Or would you want to be a commissioned officer and be in the back? And you command troops. You get to hold the honor in battle. You get to come back and be like, yeah, we won the war. Ha ha ha. So which is exactly what Giselle is all about in this.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like I should have known that. But I feel like we should take the time to say thank you for your service, everyone who served in the military. And so now moving forward, what do you guys think about this chapter when he goes to see Veruz? And
I love that instant reversal from him being completely in power at the poker table to being beaten by this old man.
Right, completely at the behest of this elder statesman.
Yeah, he's over 60 and he kicks his ass.
And I love how Giselle talks about how much pain he is more than Glockner does.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good point.
He even describes it as torture, and I think that comes up later as well.
It definitely does. Yeah.
Every other sentence is, my toes hurt so much. Or, my hands hurt so much.
It's such a little
pathetic.
Yeah, this pampered prick. And then so basically Veruz just whips his ass. The 60-year-old man just whips his ass all over the place, and then tells him to go running. And then gives him a time limit and tells Giselle that he will be aware of the time limit because he'll be on the roof of a building with Wes playing a game of squares, which I'm assuming is the equivalent of chess.
Yeah,
and
or checkers.
Right, checkers.
Or checkers, yeah.
And then so Giselle has to go on this long ass run. Adeptus, do you have the length or the mileage of Giselle's run in this case?
So I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember. Does he say? He says it either when he gets back or right before he leaves. I'm pretty sure he says it when he gets back. After Giselle runs back and he's all like, "Oh, I'm so much in pain," and he runs by Ladislaw, and Ladislaw's like, "Captain Luther, I have 1,000 marks on you." Oh. He's like, after he does all of that, which also, a side note, Ladislaw betting 1,000 marks means, I don't know, it's just interesting to think about how the economy might work with that, because 1,000 marks seems to be a pretty hefty amount. but apparently it's not an extreme amount, because otherwise, it is just a sword game in the end. But I don't know, because later on, somebody gets 100,000 marks, and that's able to pay for a fuck ton of things with leftovers. So
very true.
just interesting. Anyways, he runs up the tower, comes back, and Varuz tells him that he has it on good authority that his future opponent, Brimir Dan Gorst, runs 10 miles a day and barely, loses any energy and whatnot.
Right.
So he's gonna make Giselle do the same, which means he's gonna run the entire circuit of the Agriant. So we know actually what the size of the Agriant is, which we kind of mentioned earlier. So it's 10 miles in circumference approximately. We know the Agriant is sort of round-ish because it kind of goes around the house of the maker. And then, so square footage wise, it's approximately 7 miles square foot. Which I think we I highlighted a website and sent it to you guys, so we can always post that and see for people who have perspective on how big it is. But I did think it's interesting because it's a pretty big size. It's
it's a hell of a run.
It's not nothing. Like Giselle isn't bitching for no reason.
Yeah,
no.
10 miles in circumference is about the size of Venice plus the surrounding islands. So it really is a little city inside of a city. So.
Well, and I think I was thinking as well. There's obviously historical precedence for that as well, because you could look at that as sort of like the city of London, which is a walled city inside London. So we've got the city of London, which is a city inside a city called London.
Okay, George.
It's interesting, yeah.
George, you broke my brain. You're gonna have to repeat that again. So, the city of London is inside the city of London. Is that what you're telling me?
So you go, it's number 10 Downing Street. Okay, it's Mr. Boris Johnson. You need to
right. I'm following. Right.
He might be busy having a party, so
Right. Well, everyone's got a party.
The listeners from the UK will get
that. So. Continue.
Oh, that's it, pretty much it. I think Joe obviously has some, he's obviously a very well-read history buff. And he loves to put little bits in like that. So
I think a lot of people, they think of... Go ahead. Sorry, George.
I was just saying, the Agriant is definitely grounded in reality.
Okay.
I mean, I think some people might think it's a bit silly, to have, sort of a massive city inside a massive city, but it does happen.
Well, it makes sense too with because it's just when we hear about the Agriant, we hear it's like a fortress in a powerful area that is got a strong wall and everything like that. So we naturally, at least in the States, we tend to think, oh, it's a castle, but it's not a castle. It's just a section of the city, which that part was the first city. And everything else came from the Agriant, so it makes sense.
They built outwards, right?
Yeah,
I get that. The one note I want to call upon that I wrote down was Giselle's his belief that he's just better than everyone around him, but his desire to be a sycophant. Because like after he sees Ladislaw, he goes, bloody idiots, talking about Ladislaw's retinues, but then he goes, but he would have loved to have been one of them. It's like, oh, you want to be one of those pricks. Oh,
I mean, you know what? I feel like that's such an honest line too for everybody too, because it's like, if we see somebody with a fucking Ferrari and they're like, clearly the guy is his dad
showing
paid for
off
it or whatever, but none of us would say no to that,
right? We would love to be that fucker.
And so I think that was a good showing in there.
Yeah,
and I think in this run as well, we get the first mention of our man Baez.
Oh yes, we do. Yes, we do.
He is a statue looking down upon Giselle with disdain,
and he's got bird shit on him.
And he's got
which is deserving.
That is very true.
And he's thin.
Yeah.
Let me just double check that real quick. Oh yeah, yep, here you go.
And a random lore tidbit is that the Union, it is fashionable to smoke. Giselle mentions that, but it's not clear if they smoke chaga. But we do know later on
They smoke
that
pipe.
they smoke pipe, yes, but you can smoke chaga in a pipe. And chaga is also one of the few things that the North has that they export to other nations. So it could actually be chaga that they're smoking, and they just smoke because it's like a whatever, you know.
Described as yellow brown, which is the same as what chaga.
Yes, exactly. I tend to lean towards it being chaga because it's the only export the North has, and it's the only thing anybody smokes.
I mean, they
But
never
it could
mentioned
be something
tobacco or anything like that.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Chaga is kind of tobacco.
I mean, the series is actually very light on the food lore. I mean, I don't know if you guys have read any other fantasy, but especially things like A Song of Fire and Ice.
Oh yeah.
So long describing these meals, and every single meal in this series it's a big lump of meat. Maybe
that's it. Yeah, Joe's just like they ate something.
Big lump of meat.
That's it. Bye. Whereas George, George Martin's like the lemon crusted
pigeon pie with
fucking pheasant. It's just like I can't read that without getting hungry. His books. I'm just like, you son of a bitch. Not only have you got me hungry for the next book, you got me hungry for a recipe. You're killing me, George.
I guess it's kind of why I like that. They pointed that out is the smoking thing, because if they like, that's one of the only commodities that they have that we know about is chaga. It's a mushroom, and it gets exported, and that's what they're smoking probably.
Fantastic.
It makes you wonder, actually, too, if does the smoking price hike up a whole bunch because they go to. Well, I don't want to spoil so much.
But I do have to commend Joe on not getting too caught up in those frivolous details, because on one hand, like Martin has done, it really puts us in, like, for me, it puts me like I'm the guy right in front of that plate and I'm about to dig in. On the other hand, hey, you could spend some other time, you could spend some pages
finishing the series.
Finish the fucking book, George.
Yeah, 11 years. 11 years.
This is why we love you, Joe, because you finished your shit.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Writing all your stuff out in advance. Beautiful.
Wait, what do they call him on Twitter? Lord Grimdark? Lord Dark Grim? I don't have Twitter, everyone. So at this point, my official Twitter is this podcast page's Twitter. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. Well, for me, it's so then he says he's gonna run 10 miles a day to compete with Bremer Dangors. We got again, comedic timing is hilarious. In the book, Varus is like, until then, clean living is what we want, what we need. Wait, I'm gonna try to do it in the accent. And as a Portuguese person, as a Mediterranean, I feel like I'm well equipped for it. Give me a second. Might be a little bit harsh, but all right, here we go. No, I can't do it.
Clean living.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then 6 hours later, he was drunk as shit.
Yeah, thank you, George. Giselle was hammered. Maybe 6 hours later, hammered. And then, like, can you imagine? Like, what are the duties of an officer where during the day they're playing cards, shooting the shit? He still has time to do fencing practice, and then 6 hours later, which is a big chunk of time, obviously, he's just fucking hammered. Like, what's going on?
It does seem like the military and the Union, especially like the peacetime stuff, it's just they just don't do anything. They kind of just are. They exist.
So there's no drilling, no nothing.
Well, I think there must be some of that, but obviously he doesn't want to get bogged down with all that.
Yeah, he doesn't talk about it too much, but they do drills for sure, and they do train a decent amount, and they do keep all of their equipment in pretty tip-top shape because the Union shit is always pristine.
Okay.
They also do have a lot of guard duty. Quite a bit of guard duty, actually, is what they mostly do. They guard the gates, they walk the walls, they monitor. They're also the police, the main body of organization. If something goes wrong, they are the ones who respond to that. So it's because they're professional. The King's Own are professional soldiers, but they don't, like you guys are right, they don't have anything to do in peacetime, so they fulfill all those other roles whenever they're not there. whenever they're not at war. I mean,
Okay, I thought isn't there a city watch employed? Thought I read.
I
Thought in
think
the audiobook
that
today.
is mentioned later in the last argument. Again,
they do have a city watch, yes, but
Oh, okay.
anytime there's any kind of like thing they have to take care, like criminal element they have to take care of, it is typically the King's Own that deals with it, like if they're available,
that is a good
because they
point.
know they can get it done. But the King's Own is actually pretty impressive, but we can get to it later on.
So
Okay.
far in this part of this chapter, Giselle is busy, as you said, drunk as shit, rolling around in the mud with his mates.
Yes.
You know, we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. He basically just bumbles out of the bar. Let's just say the pub for the Brits, and then what happens? Like Casper crashes into him. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a commotion. They look, and somebody's being basically black bagged, and we find out it's Practical Frost. He's just black bagging some guy. As far as we know, it's some guy. We know who it is later on, but it's some guy.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And he just immediately sticks the bag over his head and just punches him right in the face.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't even
Again,
hesitate, yeah.
Glockta and Practical Frost, they are the epitome of efficiency. There's no wasted movements there.
No.
None whatsoever. So then,
that would be a buddy cop movie with him too.
Oh,
with the Ethera. Right. Mm-hmm. So then, what else happens? So then, Jalen Horn and West come out of the pub as well. They hear the struggle between Frost, what we know to be Frost, and the prisoner, and they go rushing forward. And Giselle just stumbles afterwards because he's goofy. And then Casper just decides to take a nap in the street. and then we can go for George. Do you want to take this?
Yeah. So obviously they try to intervene in the arrest,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing that it's an arrest, because how else would you know if they're part of the Inquisition or not?
Right. Well, that's
And
the thing. I have to ask you. They're dressed in all black and they're wearing masks that cover half their face. Isn't that well known throughout? Like,
you'd like to think so, but then they are quite
Mhm.
secretive, the Inquisition, and the average person probably hasn't had to deal with them. Well, that's how I see it anyway.
It's
And
like
it'd be easy enough just for any old person to put on a mask and pretend to be one.
exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And plus, I think they're all drunk. Even like West and Jallenhorn have obviously been drinking, so they've also just like, hey, something's happening. Oh,
Exactly, yeah, you jump to it. And we
Right.
get some of our main characters meeting for the first time, because obviously Glockta.
Right. Glockta comes up. Major West. Wait, how does he do it? Pacey does Major West. And then West is basically like, oh shit, you're alive. Well, he knows he's alive. Oh wait, actually, before Glockta comes into the picture, who else comes out of the shadows but Practical Severard? This is what I'm talking about. This man, he's sneaky, he's efficient.
that's why we work from the shadows, friend.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then doesn't Giselle remark like, hey, wait, where does this guy get a knife from? Doesn't he say that somewhere?
Giselle mentions like because he's drunk. He's like suddenly he had a long knife.
Yeah,
Where did
he
you
had
get
a
that
long.
from?
Suddenly he had a long, ugly knife in his hand. Where did that come from? He's just like, oh shit, I'm a little
He's
behind
like,
the update.
I'm gonna get my sword out.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of
And then
ties in
Glockta
with
comes
what
in.
Farouz was saying earlier about his reflexes not being good.
You're right. Yeah, Giselle's a little late on the uptake there.
Yeah. So we get a bit of exposition when Glockta and West have a conversation, and he's explaining that he's not in the army anymore; he's in the Inquisition. We get another lovely description of Frost with his pink-rimmed eyes, the glistening wet. It's just
Yeah.
Joe Abercrombie does have a thing about wet eyes.
Yeah, he either has a fetish or he's not so sure how albinos look like. He's just like, I don't know. He's like, I'm guessing albinos' eyes are wet, maybe. He's like, I don't know, but yeah. And then these are my assistants, Practical, Severard, and Frost.
And obviously, we get a little bit of backstory here when you say that West tried to stop Glockter getting into whatever's gotten into this situation.
Yes, yeah,
You know,
he
you
tried to talk him out of
dissuade
it.
me. And
Right.
at the beginning of that sentence, he says, "Don't worry, West. I don't blame you in the least. Not for that, anyway." Which is going to come up
Yes.
later.
Right. It's
Yeah.
definitely gonna come up later. And it's interesting, like as a first time reader, I would imagine there's a little bit of confusion here because
As far as we know, this is the first time they're meeting.
right, but how Glockta talks about it, it seems like they should be on good terms, but then West is like he says his
He's
teeth were
very
gritted.
taken aback.
Yeah, very taken aback. And it wasn't until later you kind of understand that point of view as to why West's reaction is the way it is.
It's kind of without spoiling anything, and this isn't spoiling what I'm about to say here. Is that Glockta already has his mindset on how he feels about West, but West does not know how Glockta feels about him, and he's not sure how he feels about Glockta yet. So he's kind of like caught off guard. He doesn't know where they stand, and Glockta knows exactly where they stand in his mind.
Right.
And that's kind of the vibe I always got from it too.
No, that's very true. That's a very good way to point it, Harrison.
Definitely.
That's a good way. Good way.
And that's an excellent little character interaction there.
It's written very well. There's a lot of subtext whenever they're speaking, and that you're trying to guess at and grasp, but you don't have all the pieces yet.
And of course, this comes to an end with Glockta or West asking Glockta if they can fence again sometime.
Yeah.
A little bit optimistic.
Yeah, I think you just like Wes had no idea what to say in that instance, and he just tried to find the thing that they both like related to, which was fencing, because they both were in the contest at different times, which is something I should ask about. Like, I'll say that for the next episode. Yeah. But there is a connection there, and Wes he's obviously drunk. He's not thinking straight, but he just says, "Can we fence sometime?" And then Glockta even though he's trying to be nice, he's like good natured laugh. He says, right? Glockta gave a good natured laugh. Glockta's like, "Have you seen me?"
I mean, it is definitely sarcastic the way he says,
right.
I find myself ever so slightly crippled these days.
I love that line.
It's like a duh, buddy, a duh.
It's just, I think it's without revealing too much. It's been a while since Wes has seen him, obviously, and Wes just kind of wants to. At least the vibe I got from that too is that he's like trying to pick up the pieces a little bit, and Glockta just isn't having it.
Right. He's not giving him much, we could say.
Of course, because he's on business, isn't he? He's just trying to get his prisoner to where he needs to be.
Right. And it must have been drawing for Glockta on his side to see West, after what? Like, after they referenced it, like 8-9 years? Something like that?
9 years, yeah.
9 years. So he's probably just trying to be as diplomatic as possible, but also get the fuck out of there,
Yeah. Also, I liked how you guys pointed out how each of Giselle's quote-unquote friends, they all kind of have their own things that they do. And they all do exactly what they would do in this scene. Yeah. Casper just doesn't give a fuck because he's rich, so he just passes out. He's like, doesn't matter for me, I'm just going to pass out.
Yeah, he doesn't even know what's happening.
Because Giselle is like, oh, there's something wrong. I should probably stand up because if something happens, I want to be a part of it because I'm special. And then Jallenhorn is actually a pretty good dude. And so he's like, oh, I have to help those citizens. And
right. Him and Wes, they're the ones that take the lead, and Giselle just follows along.
Yeah, exactly.
And it does really show like how even though he puts on this facade of being better than everyone else, when it comes down to it, he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
No, you know what I mean? And I think
he's
that
as lost as anyone else.
The way that a lot of people are when they're overconfident.
That's true. They kind of just fake it till they make it, and they're used to that succeeding for them.
Right.
Which again comes up later.
Yeah, it does. And we could say it works out well for the Union, but it doesn't.
Sorry if you guys can hear my dog.
What happened?
Sorry if you can hear my doggo.
No, I can't hear him.
No.
You're good.
So. All right. Well,
and so then next, so our last segment will be we're gonna choose the best meme of the week. Harrison, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So ordinarily we would pick a meme from the House of the Meme Maker subreddit, but this time somebody had put it on the First Law subreddit, and it's really, really popular. It's pretty simple. It's by user Pistachio Queen, and I'm not sure how many of you have seen the Rick and Morty, but whenever they go to that hellscape apocalypse scenario to deal with the trauma, there's this warlord guy who wears a helmet the whole time, and then when he takes it off, he just looks like a normal dude. So the meme is him with all of his equipment on, Brimadan Gorse speaking before speaking, and then the other one is the picture of him looking completely normal. It's Brimadan Gorse after speaking, which is pretty hilarious. We haven't come across Brimadan Gorse yet, but it's not spoilers to say that his voice does not match his attitude.
Yeah, exactly. We've heard of him from second and third hand accounts. We don't know much about Brimadan Gorse, but we can just say, even in this book, we will find out. Like Harrison said, his voice does not match his body, and is it a negative?
It's a nice bit of physical comedy, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's built up for so long. I mean, even in this first chapter with Giselle, Brimadan Gorse has got a back leg like a pillar of steel. A pillar of steel.
He runs 10 miles a day.
Exactly.
Right. A pillar of steel. It's like, okay, all right.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I spent the last 10 minutes focusing on that 3-word phrase right there.
So, thank you, user Pistachio Queen.
Thank you.
We'll probably share it.
We will. We will share it. I don't know about the time of publication or recording, but it will be shared. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you for listening and supporting this podcast. This is a passion project for the three of us, and your support means a lot to us. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever else you listen to podcasts on. And please rate and review this podcast as it helps to spread our reach. Thank you all again for listening. It means the world to me personally, because this is the first, we would say, art creative or artistic project that I've ventured on in my 33 years of existing, and I imagine it holds the same for George or Harrison. Please tell me your thoughts, guys.
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, this is the first time I've ever been motivated to do something like this ever, and it's just fantastic the way these books have brought us all together.
No,
I've always kind of wanted to see more content for the First Law. As soon as I read it, I was like, man, I wish there was more out there. And so getting to be a part of the people that get to make that content is really exciting.
Yes. Yeah,
and everybody, make sure you look at our memes. Look at our memes on House of the Meme Maker. You can find us anywhere on social media under Circle of the World Podcast, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, where you can find weekly updates, memes, questions, polls, and more.
That's right. I believe our Twitter handle is COTW Pod. Is that correct,
That is
George?
correct. Yes.
And then Instagram is the same, or is it Circle the World Podcast?
That everything else is just called Circle of the World Podcast.
Yeah.
Everything
including
else
our TikTok, yeah.
Oh, including TikTok. We are on TikTok. Harrison is taking the lead on that. You support Harrison in his reenactments, all right? You do it, or else I will cry, I guess. I don't know.
It'll mean more as people get invested in us, you know?
Absolutely. No, even though it's a passion project, just the fact that anybody supporting us means the world, because, again, this is not something we're inclined to do, and we're trying. So we appreciate any support that we can get. Thank you again, everyone. We will see you next Friday.
Why do we